Hi there everybody, thanks so much for joining me on this next video tutorial where I'll be taking you through the steps for drawing an eye. This is a drawing I've been working on for roughly about 40 minutes. I'm fairly sort of pleased with it. I've kind of developed it from some basic shapes, and I've added lots of tones and textures in there to kind of really develop the shape. So it's a drawing that is kind of nearing a satisfactory state of completion. So what I'm going to do for this tutorial is really just talk you through the process I use to kind of reach this stage. Okay, so I'm just going to pop this to one side for just a second. Okay, so you might be familiar with something like this. This is what most people kind of revert to when they're asked to draw an eye. We tend to revert to the childhood symbol system, where we represent everything in very simplistic terms, which kind of works if you're doing something very quick and diagrammatical. That would be fine to represent it like that. But in observational drawing, we really need to employ a few more tricks really to kind of move us forward from just relying on this simple system of symbols. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that to one side as well. So I'm going to start by drawing 3 simple concentric circles in the middle of my page here. So let's make sure I am in the middle of my page. So let's start over here. So they don't have to be super perfect or anything. Just take a little bit of time to draw a perfect circle. So it's worth just sort of trying to get your circle fairly accurate. I'm just going to move that into the centre of the shot a bit more. Okay, so that's the outer one. I'm just going to get rid of a couple of these lines just to kind of make that a little bit cleaner. Okay, so we've got our first circle. So we want this kind of represents the eyeball, the whole of the eyeball. Okay, so in dead center of that circle we want to create another one. So you might want to, I'm not brilliant at doing freehand circles, as you can probably tell. So I'm just kind of going to work, I'm going to try and get my second smaller circle to be fairly equidistant all the way around to the outer one. Okay, and that one really represents the iris. Okay, I'm just going to rub away some of those lines. There were a bit of a mistake there. Okay, and then we want another circle in the middle of that circle. Okay, and this one is representative of the pupil. Okay, so we've got 3 simple concentric circles there as our kind of basic structure for the eye. Okay, so the next step really is to start to represent what covers the eye, to protect it. As we all know, we have eyelids to protect our eyes. So I'm going to draw a very again, reverting back to the symbol system, I'm going to draw like an elongated rugby ball shape as a rudimentary eye shape, and that's going to go right across that eyeball shape. And as you can see, I'm just cutting across that that iris circle there. So that's quite sort of important, which I'll be able to show you why as this moves along. Okay, so from this point we want to create another curved line, just kind of in the middle between the top of our outer circle and the top of our eye shape. Okay, and that would represent the upper eyelid, and then conversely we want to put in a similar curved line, perhaps a little bit fainter, and that would represent the lower eyelid, though the lower eyelid, you know, it tends to not be as visible, so we'll deal with that later on. Okay, so once we've got this far, I want to now rub away some of the lines that I don't actually need now. So I'm going to rub away the outer circle one. I don't need that. I don't need the top of the iris anymore, which is kind of going to hide behind the top eyelid. And I want to get rid of the lower part of the outer circle as well. Okay, so I'm just kind of left with this kind of fairly simple looking eye shape. Okay, so I'm now going to kind of try and make this a little bit more authentic looking. I'm going to represent a little tear duct shape on the side, the corner of that eye there. If you look in the mirror at your own eye, I mean, I'm not using a reference photo or anything, so I'm just kind of working on instinct really, but if you look at your own eye, your tear duct kind of protrudes out a little bit by the nose, sort of in the corner of the eye there. Okay. Alright, so once I've reached this point, I'm kind of ready to start putting in a little bit of tone and shading, because I want to be able to represent this shape that's actually going to be coming out a little bit from the picture plane. Okay, so to do that, I'm just going to take my pencil quite lightly. I can still see some of the residual lines from the outer circle there, so I'm going to use those as a bit of a guide as well, and I'm going to take my shading into the corner of the eye, over the corner of the eyeball, and similarly I can see the lower edge, the residual marks from that lower edge of the circle, so I'm going to take some shading down there as well. Okay, and then when I've got this far, I'm just going to put a little bit on this side as well. Okay, so when I've got this far, I really want to then maybe add a little bit of tone also to the iris and the pupil. And at this point, I'm going to put in a few kind of little light spots in the pupil there as well. But if you look at your eye, you tend to, the way the eye is constructed, you tend to have sort of these faint kind of bands of colour in your eye that seem to fan out from the central pupil. So I'm just going to make some marks fanning out to represent as best I can how the iris, those bands of colour. And I'm just kind of trying to just roughly do it because these bands are going to be quite important as we sort of come to the finish of the drawing. And then for the pupil, I don't want it to be super dark, but I want it to be darker than the iris. So I'm going to take my pencil, I'm going to just apply a little bit more pressure on my pencil, going around the highlight shapes that I've put in there. Okay, so at this point I want to kind of start to develop it a little bit more. So I'm going to use an ordinary cotton bud. I'm going to just take it over those marks that I used to do some shading, and this is just to soften them really. I'm not going to use my fingers for this. Lots of people do kind of resort to using their fingers, but I would avoid it if you can, because the problem with doing that is your fingers, even with clean hands, you will have natural oils in your skin that kind of transfer down onto the paper, and the oils tend to want to fight a little bit with, you know, the graphite in pencil or charcoals, and it makes it quite sort of splodgy and kind of difficult to work with. So I would avoid doing that if you can. And then once I've gone around those outer shadowy areas of tone, I'm going to take my cotton bud around the iris as well and soften off all those lines without getting rid of those kind of bands that I was trying to create to emulate the look of the iris. It's just really to kind of knock it back and soften it all. Okay. Alright, so at this point I want to start to develop it a little bit more. So I'm just kind of going to really just work into it, I think. That's as I did with my other drawing, you know. I'm just kind of going to deepen the tone. So I'm working from my imagination. Hopefully you'll have a reference photograph to work from, or even a live model to sit for you. That's always a bit of a luxury these days. You know, people really live very busy lives, and we tend not to, you know, not to give a lot of time to stuff like this. So we, you know, as an artist, you more often than not, you know, I do commission portraiture, and more often than not, I'm working from photographs, preferably more than one photograph, but it doesn't always work out like that. Okay, so this is going to take a little while, so I'm just going to go a little bit silent and turn the music up a little bit for you and speed the film up, but you'll still be able to see what I'm doing, hopefully. And yeah, I'll come back to you when it's near a finish. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, I've kind of moved the drawing on a little bit further now. I've added a bit more darker tone to it. I've softened it off. I've also added some directional marks at the top there to suggest an eyebrow. Okay, and also I've kind of modified the shape of the lower lid as well, because, you know, well, with my own face, I know that I've got kind of more wrinkles around this area. Okay, so I've just taken some light lines to suggest those. Okay, so from this point, I want to start picking out some of the lighter tones on this a little bit, because at the moment it's looking a bit flat and grey, apart from this sort of central section here. But I want to just kind of take, I've got a piece of white tack here. You can use any sort of sticky tack. It's, you know, the stuff that you use to put posters up with. But it's also really useful in drawing, just to kind of lift out areas of tone. Okay, so I'm going to take it a little bit up on this, what is now starting to read more as a brow bone, and also a little bit on the eyeball there. And I'm going to break up this outer iris line as well and get a few sort of highlighted areas across the iris, because, you know, our eyes tend to be very moist and wet, so we don't, you know, it picks up the light more. Okay, so we want to sort of describe the difference in texture of the skin. Okay, so from that point, it's just a matter of working a little bit more into it, really. So I'm going to re-establish some of these tones, just working over that highlighted area, just to kind of create a little bit of depth. And I'm going to go in quite sort of deep. I'm just varying the pressure on my pencil into that crease there, where the top eyelid kind of meets the brow bone. You know, it tends to, you know, fall quite deeply into shadow. Okay, and then also where the eyelash line is, I'm going to make that fairly dark as well. And I'm going to use some directional sweeping strokes going down and up to describe eyelashes. Okay, and then out from that darker line on the top of the eyelid. That looks. And if you look at your eyelashes, you know, they do tend to, unless you're wearing lots of mascara, they do tend to sort of point down a little bit before they flick back up, so you get this kind of sweeping motion there. And then on the bottom eyelid, if you notice there, I've just created a rim, a bottom rim of the eye there. You're often, you know, that part of the eye is often visible, that just where it edges the eyeball against the iris. You often see that bottom rim. And from there, I'm going to take a few sort of small sharp strokes down, just to kind of describe those lower lashes as well. Okay, and again I'm going to go in with my cotton bud to kind of try and soften that up and make it look a little bit more natural. Okay, so this central part, this iris part, we need to kind of look at the iris. That, you know, this is just an ordinary kind of black and white drawing that I'm demonstrating here, as you can see. But you know, usually the iris has a colour, and you might get colours reflected as well onto the surface of the eye from the environment that you're in. I'm just kind of going to vary the tones in the pupil, and also I'm going to pick up the idea of these bands again, fanning out, to kind of describe the look, the natural eye. I'm just kind of doing this from an experience really of looking and making drawings of facial features. You kind of get to know how something looks in generic terms. I mean, obviously, if you're drawing from a photograph or a person, you know, people's features vary wildly. I mean, this is a very generic looking perfect eye that doesn't really necessarily belong to anybody. If you just depends who you're drawing. I'm just deepening the outer edge of that as well. So I'm going to use the clean end of my cotton bud, just working back into that, and again using my white tack to go back in and pick out some of these bands. The nice thing about this white tack is you can sort of squash it into shapes. You can make a point and take out sort of fairly small areas. Okay, so I'm just going to define that corner a little bit as well, because you know, you get the feeling of the eyeball going back to the duct a little bit more. So it's really, you know, it's an intuitive thing. Drawing anything is an intuitive thing. You have to kind of really observe closely the thing that you're drawing and try and find the truth of it, really, just kind of looking always, and then making your marks respond to what you're seeing. Okay. But just to kind of finish this off, you know, that's the thing with finishing drawings as well. It's worth noting that, you know, if you're anything like me, I tend to think something's finished, and then the next day I come in and look at it and I think, oh, I need to develop that part, and you know, it kind of is finished when it's finished. You know, you kind of come to a natural pause, I think, with all drawing. And it's finding that sort of sweet spot between something being, you know, nicely finished, and then something you don't really want to push it too far and then overwork it and lose some of its kind of charm, if you like, you know. And again, you know, I think I've done that many a time as well. Okay, so just to finish off, I just want to strengthen up some of these sort of fine hair strokes to kind of describe the eyebrow sitting over the top of the eye. And if you look at the way your eyebrow is constructed, it tends to, you know, the hairs kind of move in one direction out towards the temple. But they tend to sort of overlap a little bit, unless you've got very lovely groomed eyebrows. Just depends. Mine aren't particularly, I have to confess. And I'm just going to use my cotton bud to take up some of the graphite in the deeper shadows here and just kind of move it around the drawing just to emulate the feeling of the outer lids and the skin around the eye. Okay, so I'm going to kind of come to a finish on this because I don't really want to kind of overwork it. So there you go, in sort of, I don't know, 5 or 6 simple steps, we've got to a stage where we've moved from something that's very, very, very simple and diagrammatical to something that is approaching sort of realism. I mean, I could continue to work into this, I probably will. I'll probably look at this tomorrow and start to want, I'm already fiddling with it, but I hope that was helpful for you and sort of described and showed you how just using some very simple tricks you can really sort of move your drawing on and get it to a more satisfactory state of finish. Okay, so that's my eye drawing. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that was useful and entertaining. If you liked it, please subscribe to the channel, and yeah, I will see you next time. Okay, take care. Bye now. Hey everyone, just wanted to say thanks so much for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit that notification bell to receive updates when I post new content. Okay, have a great day and I will see you next time. Bye now.